We're interested in how we categorize things according to age. And so in this packet, I'm going to give you, in this packet will be a number of slivers of paper, pieces of paper with words on them. Your first job will be to put the words in order from youngest to oldest.
Jack Callum is using the Cosmic Timeline image sorting assessment activity to facilitate a discussion of what students know and don't know about the relative ages of objects on Earth and in space.
Today in class, we were looking at pictures of stars and galaxies and planets and many other things from the universe and from planet Earth, and organizing them by time. And when the students were finished, they had a model of the universe from new to ancient.
China. That was a while ago, no?
That was a pretty while ago. That was about
Medium age. No.
somewhat young.
Right, okay.
Jupiter should be over here. Also.
Yeah, the planets are ancient, they're old. And the sun, too.
The sun comes before all of them.
Okay,
They're even older.
Some of the objects pictured are relatively easy to estimate an age for, but some images may be unfamiliar or ambiguous.
We've seen this one before, but not in color.
Put me in age.
Well, we don't know what it is yet.
Well, some has to be minimum age. This is the Hubble Heritage too.
And the really ancient is the sun and the galaxies and stars.
The moon is somewhat old. The sun is really ancient.
I would like them to have a sense of how old things are, numbers like 1 billion years in comparison to the things they're used to dealing with, which is mostly the now, and also to get an idea of how related some things are to other things, and how if one thing is not present, another thing couldn't be present. And in a way, just the opposite. Some of the pictures, in the first instance, you think are pictures of things that are old, and they turn out to be relatively young.
The Earth is the same as the moon, somewhat old.
Why don't we look at what each of the teams has done, and maybe one of you could explain to us. Why don't we start with this team? So all the other teams, come on down here. What we're interested in is what you think, and why you say some things are young, and why you say some things are old, and what you use to come up with that kind of category or opinion. So, Therese, why don't you just talk a little bit about what your team did?
We put the stars and galaxies on their really ancient because they're old.
Okay.
And then we put the planets and the sun and this nebula, and they're very old. And then we put this star that looks like it's exploding, the dinosaurs, and this asteroid, and they're somewhat old because these are older than this. And then, and then for medium age, we put the pyramids and the Great Wall of China. And
when a student sees a pyramid or a dinosaur or something like that, they immediately think ancient. Some of the students had dinosaurs at the very beginning, even before things like the moon and the stars and things like that.
the dam is somewhat young. And then pretty young is St. Louis. St. Louis and the art are pretty, and this are pretty young. And this is pretty young because they needed technology to obviously do that.
Ah, okay. So this is not the picture, but how they got the picture. It's a little bit different than the others, okay?
Yeah,
Why did you have the dinosaurs older than some of those things?
because the dinosaurs, all this came after the dinosaurs, and the Earth had to be first for the dinosaurs to be here.
Okay.
We put the moon with the Earth because we thought that the moon had to be around with the Earth
All right. Now
around the
that's
same
different
time
than the other
period.
group.
Because how would the Earth, how would the moon just come out of nowhere? It had to be along with the Earth.
All right, so you relate the moon
Yeah.
to the Earth. Do you guys know what this is?
The nebulae?
It's a nebula? Okay.
That's our group's name.
That's the group's name. Oh, okay, you're the nebula. All right. Think about the judgments and analyses we make on Earth about things being new and things being old. What are some of the things we use? If I could say, for example, like people, as long as you promise not to use me as an example of old. Or you can. How do we, what enables us to say that's old?
The age.
That's
The
right.
age.
Yeah, but how do you know the age?
How they look? Well, you ask them.
History.
Or you ask them, okay, or how they look.
Yeah.
All
Or their
right.
date of birth.
If I held a rock up here, how would you know how old that is?
By the layers.
By the what?
Layers.
By the layers? Okay. So the layer underneath is older than the layer on top? All right. Anybody else? What kind of thinking do we do when we say, oh, this is old and this is young?
But like we're all talking, like say this had, like say the Earth had been there with the moon, or like around that time, and the sun had been around with the moon, because there would have been no light, like you said before.
We started with the stuff that you were teaching us lately, like the planets and everything we knew more about.
Okay, I hear you guys are using logic. You know, if this exists, this has to exist before it. That makes sense. Anybody else? All right, let me ask any of the groups. Were there any pictures where you really had a good discussion, maybe because you had a strong disagreement? I think this should go here. I think.
Yeah,
Which one?
that one with that looks like Saturn and a beach.
This one and that one? All right. Any of the others? Let me ask that again. Do you think it's possible to have some stars around today that weren't around
Yeah.
back when?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And let's say stars that are blue like this and big have short lives. Let's say I told you that when we take pictures of the stars and they're big and blue, that they have short lives, they burn out quickly. They're real huge, but they burn out quickly. Would that change might that change where we put this one?
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible to put this here or even over here?
Like somewhat young,
Okay, it would be
Younger.
possible.
because if they would be going away and then the new ones would be coming out.
Then it wouldn't be that ancient.
Yeah, they wouldn't be that.
So at least some stars we could put over here somewhere. We don't have to put all the stars in ancient. When I look up I see a star in the sky. Is the star there?
No.
So what am I looking at? I'm sorry?
The past?
I'm looking at the path. Why? Why?
Because something blew up. Because, yeah.
Say it again, Tierra, I couldn't hear you.
Because light traveled from thousands of years ago to reach that spot. Where
Okay, I'm looking at the light from the star. So the further back we can go in our observation of light, or whatever it is our telescopes are picking up, the further back in time we are going. This picture represents the furthest back in time that we have ever picked up a sense of. So what you are looking at here is something that is older than anything else. This is the light, or at least a conception of the light that was around 300, 400,000 years after the Big Bang. Anybody want to make any comments or questions? And my experience talking to the students as freshmen, they do know some things about the planets. So if you just threw out the question, what do you think of when you think of space science, you would hear names of planets and the sun. I don't think before this year many of my students would have even mentioned galaxies. They would mention stars perhaps, and I think stars as those things we see in the sky, and maybe not even make the link that our sun is a star. Nice going. Good job.